of the internet. How's it going today? How you doing? I'm Billy Bones. This is a walk through the mind. A moment where we can take a couple minutes out of our day and discuss a couple ideas that got bouncing around in my head and see if we can't come to some sort of head on the topic. And today, I'd like to talk about the recent news of Amazon going up to $15 an hour. Now, we all know that Amazon is one hell of a company. They do a rather good job on operating on a minimal budget as far as labor costs go. They want to run things as cheap as possible. And that's proper business. I'm not going to disagree with them on that. We can talk about the responsibility towards their workers, but then that we bring in the $15 an hour. Now, one thing I learned through the release of this news was that Amazon had removed stock option or stock bonus for its employees and replaced it with $15 an hour. So they were getting, $11, $13 an hour. And then Amazon said, well, you guys want 15, so we'll pay you 15. Now, there's two sides to that equation right there alone. There are a lot of people, and especially in my general area, where if you're not making enough, you're obviously not making enough. And where I live is massively expensive. And in my opinion, $15 an hour barely covers it for even the growing student who I would assume has these jobs. Excuse me. But stock options are a long-term planning option. At some point, the majority of us intend to retire. We intend to not work. We can do odd jobs here and there, but as far as I understand, most of us, when we hit 65 years old, 70 years old, we expect to not have to go to work for 40 hours a week. Or hope. We all hope and plan. I'm hoping and planning. And even then, I question whether or not I'll be able to get out of working on a regular basis after I, quote-unquote, retire. But stock options, and especially with a company like Amazon, if stocks are only going to grow, you get one stock a year. We'll keep it real simple, and we'll say this year the stock was at $1,000. Well, technically, that's a $1,000 bonus. I don't know what the hourly rate transfer would be for that. That's a chunk of change. And you could sell it and pay your capital gains on it. So instead of $1,000, you really only get, we'll say, $800 because someone's greedy with taxes and brokerage fees and whatever else is entailed with stocks. So you only get an $800 bonus. Whereas if you sat on it 2, 5, 10 years, that $1,000 is now $2,000. Instead of $800 payout, you get $1,600 payout. Simple numbers. I'm not an economist whatsoever. If that wasn't clear. But and that's on under the assumption that you stayed there for 1 year and you only got the one stock option. What happens when you keep working and you keep getting more stocks? You just get one stock a year, but now you work there for 5 years. You've got 5 stocks. They originally started at $1,000 stocks, and now they're all $2,000 stocks. And you can either sit on them again and just let them grow, hopefully, if the company does well, or you could sell them and you get some money. But then we loop right back around to, $13 an hour wasn't cutting it. $11 an hour wasn't cutting it. I need the money today because stock options don't buy groceries. And that's an absolutely fair argument. At the same time, in theory, as far as I've been told, but as I'm not practicing, I'm poor education or poor follow through, is you should be putting a certain percentage away of what you earn per paycheck. 10%, 15%, 20%, even 1%. Some money put away today is money you get to have tomorrow. And so, the $15 an hour is a very big plus for today. It becomes questionable for tomorrow. One of the other things that I worry about with the $15 an hour thing, it's been a huge discussion as far as the media resources I consume. And it's a matter of, let me step back just a little bit, because when I heard the announcement on the radio of Amazon upping its wages to $15 an hour, they were announcing the push for Walmart to do the same, as I think Walmart should pay its employees a reasonable frickin' wage instead of threatening to close up shop every time they think about unionizing. But in for friendly business competition, that was a good call out. But I also heard that there's a push to bring the national minimum wage to $15 an hour. And that's where a lot more of my issues with this start to arise. The current minimum wage is, we'll just say, $8 an hour on the national level. I know there's states such as mine that are pushing for the $15 an hour, and it's going to run state by state. But that is a business expense. And my biggest curiosity on this is, does that raise the minimum requirements that an individual is able to do? One of the big arguments that's been touted about is McDonald's workers want $15 an hour to run a cash register. If you work at McDonald's, I'm not bashing on you. This is just the argument. But we can build a machine that costs 2 months of a $15 an hour cash register operator, but we can get 10 years out of that machine as opposed to paying $15 an hour to an individual. We can bring in the argument that not everybody wants to work with a machine. The machine can't answer individual questions. And when you have a problem with your burger, you can't talk to the machine and be like, I asked for no ketchup. So robotics are going to be a huge influence, as far as I understand, for the jobs that don't justify $15 an hour. I'm not going to pay someone $15 an hour to sort paper clips and organize sheets of paper. I don't, even myself, I wouldn't pay that. But if I had the option to pay someone $8 an hour and I found that to be a worthwhile use of someone's time, I could do that. But now with the minimum wage of $15 an hour, I don't want to pay twice as much for something. There is a net value in time and effort between the company and the person. So when you go to apply for a minimum wage job that's $15 an hour, are you going to be worth the money that the company is going to spend on you? And you should aim to do that. If you don't like the company, you're more than welcome to walk out of the door, quit. And that's that. That's that topic. But again, the company is investing in you, and you need to offer the return investment. As I've said before, with capitalism, you are paid what you're worth. But then my next question on the minimum wage setup, on the national $15 minimum wage, does that or do we maintain the minimum requirements, right? If I was normally going to pay you $8 an hour to sort paper clips and put paper right side up, do I now have to consider that job as a $15 an hour job, regardless, across the board? Do we raise the wage and lower the requirements? And if that's so, we have devalued the money that we are paying. Because if sorting paper is now worth $15 an hour, $15 an hour isn't worth much of anything. And let's say you've been working at a company, and the minimum wage when you started was $8 an hour, and you worked there for 10 years, and you've worked real hard, and you've gotten all your raises, and you've gotten bonus raises because you're such a good worker. You've gotten special skill sets which increase your pay, and now you're a year or two away from hitting the cap. The most money that you're going to get paid for that position, $25. Let's say you're at 22. Now the state minimum wage kicks in, or the $15 an hour minimum wage kicks in. You started at 8. New people are starting at 15. The cap, the $25 an hour for your position, does not increase by $7. The company's not going to pay your position $32 an hour. They're only going to pay you $25 an hour. In my opinion, your job has now been devalued, because it takes, in theory, less skill to get $15 an hour. And all that time you spent to get to where you're at means even less. Because you're not getting... Amazon will give its employees a $1 raise plus additional additional 25 cents to a dollar or whatever it is with their annual raise, but it still becomes it's not a continuous and fair upgrade in the pay scale. Your $22 an hour job, again, has not gone up $7 in comparison. Hasn't gone up $5. We'll give you an extra dollar. And then on your next review, we'll give you that extra 50 cents. 2 thumbs up. It has destroyed loyalty to a company for how much you've worked to earn where you're at. And now that we have more people earning $15 an hour, in theory, are these part-time jobs? Are these full-time jobs? Either way, they're entry-level jobs earning $15 an hour. Again, do the skill sets rise just to get your foot into the door? You need to prove that you have something more than a high school diploma just to get $15 an hour? What about people with absolutely no skill set whatsoever? Do I want to hire, not to be mean, do I want to hire a 16-year-old who has no business experience, nothing, doesn't even know how to run a cash register? Or do I want to hire someone who's been in and out of the workforce for 10 years and they at least know how to add and subtract and use a cash register? $15 an hour seems like a much reasonable more investment in them. And it's less training, in theory. Less chance of screw-ups, in theory. Could be the smartest 16-year-old ever. You could be Doogie Howser. You could freaking tear apart everything. But unless you can prove it and show it outside of a resume, or maybe within just a resume, 16-year-olds don't have resumes. Usually. Got to make that $15 an hour worth spending. And still, the people that have been working long, their efforts are worth less. Again, because the pay scale hasn't gone up accordingly. On a final point, we look at the minimum wage of $15 an hour outside of, and remove it from looking at it from the worker's side. Let's look at it from the business side. People like Amazon and Walmart, even though they're not currently paying the wage at the time of this recording, but still, you got really large businesses that have really good income. They've got enough money to pay their employees $15 an hour. Especially when people like Bezos are rolling in dough. What about me? What about when I decide to make a company? I've designed a widget. It's the greatest widget ever. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be on all the sales shelves. Companies don't just become Amazon overnight. It's a slog. It's a long process. Companies are family owned usually for a generation or two before they really break big. There's a handful that, again, Bezos ran it out of his garage and look at where he's at now. But his first handful of employees weren't paid $15 an hour. I doubt they were the first warehouse employees were even paid much more than that, or minimum wage, I should say. There's a couple family-owned businesses that I shop at, and outside of the requirements of them having to pay $15 an hour, I don't know how well they can afford it. Let's say I start a business and I'm making these widgets, and I can make 10 widgets a day, but I need to make 50 widgets a day. If I hire, so that means I need to hire 4 more people at 8 hours a day, $15 an hour. That adds up quick, but I don't have that kind of money. I can only hire 3. Well, now, in the budgetary and balancing act of running a business, you need to eke out more production. I guess this ties back into the cash register argument. But I need 50 widgets a day, but I can only make 30. Maybe if I hound on people, we can get 35 or 37 done. It still doesn't bring my balance into the black. And now I'm held down longer as a small business operator. And it takes me that much longer to break into a medium-sized business. And again, we can bring in the argument that the area requires $15 an hour. Again, where I live, $15 an hour. Just to think about making ends meet. But sometimes going to work for a company and you take that pay cut initially, right? I get those 3 people to agree to work at $12 an hour, $11 an hour, and I get to hire a 4th person. And we all grind it out, and we can make 51 widgets a day. We make that 1 extra widget. Doesn't sound like a lot, but if you do that enough, you end up with a surplus, and the accounting budget grows. And more people discover your widgets. And now you have more money coming in. So now you can pay that, either the extra bump in price to your current employees, or you pull in another one, you start making 62 widgets a day. Get that little extra bump, 63 widgets a day. And then you can start paying your current employees a better wage because they were humble and they took the hit. But with a forced minimum wage of $15 an hour, it makes it just a little bit more difficult. The US dollar does not go as far as it used to. It's worth nowhere near as much as it was back in the day. Our national outstanding debt has devalued the dollar. So $15 today was technically $8 yesterday. What $8 yesterday could buy you is what $15 today could buy you. So maybe the floor did need to be raised. Maybe the minimum skill set should be the same at $15 an hour. But then we need to raise the ceiling as well. instead of devaluing. Again, in my opinion, that's the way I see it. I see a devalue. Of the people that have put in their time and effort and worked hard to get to the higher pay scales. Not everybody is meant to work in an office. Not everybody is designed to push paper. Not everybody's designed to pick up a shovel. And we all agree on money to make the world go round. And this problem is much bigger than you or I or even a small collection of us can really turn on its head. But it's just, again, as normal, as with this show, it's just a means and an attempt to get everybody thinking about things. Get the conversation started. So, if you enjoyed it, I appreciate it. If you didn't, thanks for hanging out and listening. I'm Billy Bones, BILLYBON 3S. And that's the number 3 instead of an E. Find me on Twitter at Billy Bones. We got a website, billybones.com. Questions, comments, love mail, hate mail, hit me up. There's a contact page on the website. Otherwise, if you found this episode or any others that you might have listened to worth sharing, I ask that you share. Otherwise, go out and start the conversation yourselves, guys and ladies. Love y'all. Next time.